He is. You guys ready?
Do you have the 28?
Ladies and gentlemen, are you guys ready?
Absolutely.
Born.
Born ready. Let's go.
I'd like to call to order the regular school board meeting of the Miamisburg City Schools dated Tuesday, June 28th, 2022. May we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Amsler.
Here.
Mr. Daffler.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mrs. Neese.
Here.
Mr. Toadvine.
Present.
Dr. Blessing.
Present.
I am present. Mr. Homan.
Next on the agenda is adoption of tonight's agenda. May I have a motion?
I move that we adopt tonight's agenda.
Motion by Mr. Toadvine,
Second.
second by Mr. Lewis. Any questions or comments in regards to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Daffler.
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
Mr. Amsler.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Approval of minutes for the regular board meeting held May 19th, 2022. Finance Committee meeting held on May 19th, 2022. And the special board meeting held on June 13th, 2022. May I have a motion for those minutes, please?
I'll move for the approval of minutes for the regular board meeting on May 19th, 2022, the Finance Committee meeting held on May 19th, 2022, and the special board meeting held on June 13th, 2022.
Motion by Mr. Lewis,
I second it.
and we have a second by Mrs. Neese. Do we have any questions or comments or concerns in regards to those minutes? Hearing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes.
Mr. Amsler.
Yes.
Mr. Daffler.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
E is the approval of the financial report dated May 31st, 2022. May I have a motion for the financial report, May 31st, 2022?
I move for the approval of the financial report dated May 31st, 2022.
Motion by Mr. Daffler
I'll second.
and seconded by Mr. Lewis. Mr. Espy?
Yes, so if you could just scroll up slightly. So what this is showing us, this is again our monthly analytic that I take once we close the month. We're showing our revenues are actually trending a little bit high. Also, our expenditures are trending a little bit low, so that's a swing of about $677,000. I do think it's going to be a little bit interesting to see how June pans out. We do have a lot of Board of Revision direct payments that we're getting, so I do expect that to be somewhat of an anomaly for June. There are 3 approvals just tonight for your consideration on that, but we are trending a little bit high right now, which is a good thing. So still within 1.5% of the forecast currently. So any questions on any of the finance report?
Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes.
Next on tonight's agenda is recognition of citizen, staff, and students. And first up tonight is the Miamisburg Instrumental Music and Winds. So Ryan and Steve.
Well, we, gentlemen, sorry to see Mrs. Bennett didn't make it this evening. Come on up. Wanted to recognize our Fine Arts Department, especially our music department, for all of your accomplishments this year. And, you passed it, sorry. And so we want to congratulate you and take this time to recognize you. You've had a lot of firsts this year, a lot of successful events and competitions. If you want to share some of those with the board, and if any of your students have an accolade they would like to say as well.
Do any of you guys want to talk? You're the only one who didn't shake your head immediately. All right. Hi. Thank you all very much for this recognition tonight. We apologize. I know we wanted to do it at the last meeting, and it literally happened at the exact same time as our end of the year awards night. So thank you for adding us to the June agenda. We do have 5 students with us. I'll introduce them really quick. I'll make sure I don't forget one of you. Aaron Schmidt, Parker McQuain, Sabrina Barraclaw, Olivia Howard, and Brooke Husted. They were all the members of the class of 2022, and they were all members of our WINS group that participated at WGI back in April. I think everybody kind of knows how we did and everything, but we won. We were the open class, which is kind of like the middle tier of WGI. We were the national champions in that competition, which was held here in Dayton. The preliminary round was at Nutter Center, and the championships were at UD Arena, and had groups from all over the country. The second place group in our division was from Kentucky, third place was from Tennessee, fourth place was from Indiana, and fifth place was from South Carolina. So the groups come from all over the country. There was a group from Hawaii in one of the other divisions that was here in Dayton. So it's a national event. It was an incredible achievement for our kids. We actually have the second highest high school score ever given to any groups in the WINS division, which goes back to 2015. So we scored a 95.375, which I know that really doesn't mean anything to you, but I'll tell you it was really, really good. So it's really, really good. It's just a testament to our staff. Obviously, Mr. Wintersheimer does so much for us. Kendra Wendland is our third director. She's like one of our instructors also with the marching band, but she's kind of the third director with the WINS group. She handles a lot when he and I are overwhelmed with doing the rest of the high school band stuff, and she's able to kind of pick up some slack for us. And then these 5 students here, and they're 5. We had 9 total seniors in the group, and really they're just such a testament to everything that makes Miamisburg great, and we're just incredibly proud of them and all of our students and all of our staff for everything they accomplished. Do you have anything you want to say? I think I'm good. Okay. So.
Well, we're very proud of you and all of our students, so thank you very much. So we want to get a picture of
Is in it or not?
we can do that. Oh, we can do that. There we go. Will that work? Look a little work. Good idea. Yeah. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I wouldn't want to follow my phone. You're very welcome. Thanks for coming. Congratulations. Wonderful summer.
All right, that's all. That's what we're here. So.
Yeah. Oh, no.
You might go to Dairy Queen or somewhere now,
They have to go to bed.
Thank you,
Thanks.
guys.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is board discussion, and we have a presentation from Masters Insurance. So, Miss Angie.
Hi there. Lisa's going to pass out to everybody a copy of the full proposal. We're going to present this evening an abbreviated version of that because nobody wants to sit through 18 slides of insurance detail. So we're going to go through just high level what we have prepared for you guys for the 22-23 school year. We want to, I have this. I have a lot of clickers around.
Oh, turn it on the side.
Oh, you have to turn it on.
I forgot it. Sorry.
That's always helpful, isn't it, if I can turn it on? There we go. Okay, so we wanted to just start with what you'll find on the second page of your packet, which is just an overview of the changes that have gone into the program this year, and really just a high level of what's affecting the pricing as we go through the program. So, again, we're not going to go through every page, so we don't want you to get, don't feel like you're missing out on something. It's certainly all there for your review later. But what you're looking at this evening is an overall increase on the program of 8%. These changes, there are several different factors that go into that. The biggest factor affecting insurance today and the costs are the increased cost of inflation, increased cost of building materials, buildings that used to be insured for $129, $139 a square foot 3-4 years ago. Now, obviously, those costs are escalating exponentially. So your program this year is insuring all of your buildings in the district at $200 per square foot. So there's an additional $20 million in building coverage in the program this year. And that gets us to a level where we feel like everything is sufficiently covered for this year going into that. We also spent a significant amount of time with the team this year going through all of the assets and equipment of the district, so all of the computer equipment, your lawn mowers, maintenance equipment, all of those things. And that yielded to us a savings of about a little over $7,400 this year. It took a lot of time on behalf of the team, including Debbie, who's not here tonight, but the team really went through those schedules with a fine-tooth comb, and we found there were some things that we had been insuring that the district no longer owned. Some of the other pieces we were able to assign to a specific location, which allowed us to charge a lower rate for those. So that's reflected in the schedules that you'll see back a few pages. But the long and the short of it is, we now know what we're looking at and what we're insuring today is exactly what the district owns and where it is. Okay? Questions on that? Okay. We also took a look at the deductibles that the district had been carrying, and the team determined that those deductibles were fairly low based on the cash flow and availability of the district at this time. So we did increase deductibles on both the auto, physical damage, and also the property, and we'll get into some details on that. You'll see that, but just that's something that does affect the pricing in a very positive way and presents a good cost savings for the district. We have added 3 additional units, 3 additional buses to the schedule, so you'll see the auto premium up a little bit. And then the largest percentage increase you'll see is on the cyber insurance. So I'm sure you see in the news, that's really the hot topic. It's the toughest line in insurance today. It's even more challenging for public entities because you all have so many devices out there, so many points of access, so many records with your students and the teachers. So we had really prepared, we were bracing for a much higher increase than we were able to secure. So we secured a 57% increase. It sounds significant, and it is, but with several public entities, they're looking at from 200 to 300% increases this year. And with many, they're not even able to secure the limits they've carried in the past. So we were able to get a $2 million limit for you and at a 57% increase. So we can take a look at the dollars as we move through, but we just wanted to give you kind of some high level of what is making up that 8% increase.
What are the main couple of things that's driving that?
On the cyber insurance specifically, number of incidents, Specifically ransomware cases are up exponentially, and with the Ukraine-Russia incident, the United States is targeted specifically. So multi-factor authentication is the biggest preventer of ransomware attacks. The district is in the process of implementing the last stages of multi-factor authentication. When that's in place, 99% of those ransomware attacks are prevented. So all of the investment that you guys are making in IT and those protections are allowing us to be able to get better coverage for you. But that's really the big driver. COVID kicked it off because it put a lot of folks working from home. Everybody's working mobily. We don't have the same securities at home or when we're floating around tapping into networks as we do when we're on site. So that really opened the floodgates. But the most recent war and those tensions have escalated things as well. They're really after the districts because of the records that you have, because folks can come in, hack, steal those private records of the students, and you're not checking credit reports, right? Like we check our credit report, frequently. We know what's going on with it. We don't check our kids because they don't have credit cards, right? So what the industry has found is that public entities, also medical offices, they're targets because you can go after kids' records. They can take out credit cards, hit their credit for years at a time before anybody notices. So that's why, for you guys as a risk class, it's a big exposure.
Andrew, also to Dale, when we went through to go out to bid, we actually had to redo another one this year of all the security protocols that we have in place to go through. And as we went through that, we've almost met all of them, which is why we got a low increase of 57. I know that sounds horrible. A low increase of 57%. But when I kind of talked to some of my neighboring districts, like she said, it's between 200% and 300%, because we have an excellent technology department. I would tell you our techs are on it. Andy's on top of it, and they are constantly going through things every single day to make sure nothing has been hacked and going through it. So I want to give credit where credit's due with our technology department for being very diligent and going through all those things and having those protocols in place.
Yeah, it's difficult because it's changing every day. And these hackers, it used to be, you had the vision of like the guy in his mom's basement, hacking. Now they're big businesses in other countries that are spending all of their time and millions of dollars trying to find vulnerabilities in your system. So not to get too into the weeds with this, but in addition to the coverage, you also have with your policy resources so that if you do have any kind of incident, not even necessarily a claim, but any kind of incident where it's identified that someone's in your system, you have access to a myriad of resources that'll come in and trace those forensics. And if there's a vulnerability, they'll tell you how to patch it, walk you through that. So really that's the biggest piece of having a cyber policy. If you don't have that and you walk in and you have a ransomware demand for $1 million in Bitcoin, where are we going to get that, right? I don't know where to get $1 million in Bitcoin, and Sean isn't going to lend it to me at the bank. So, yeah. Any other questions on that? Okay. So we are going to bump into we're just going to go real high level here on coverages. There aren't any significant changes in your program from a coverage perspective. General liability is the main, liability coverage that we're looking for. You have 1 million, 3 million limits there. That's standard. I do want to draw your attention to the additional coverages at the bottom of this slide. You do have built into your program $100,000 in school violence response per event and a $250,000 aggregate per year. So that does give you some coverage. If there were to be a violent event in one of our locations, you would have some coverage there. There are certainly higher limits available for that. If that's something that the board wanted to entertain, we could take a look at it. But you do have something there, which is great. You've got a little bit of unmanned aircraft, which that's covering drones. If you have anybody flying any drones for any reason in a class. We've got the internships for schools, that's covered. A little bit of pollution, so you have a pollution exposure with your students in chemistry class. You know, if there's a spill, that's actually a pollution incident, which requires, OSHA to come in, clean it up, deem it clean, all those things. You have some coverage for that included. Corporal punishment, school doctors and nurses, and then the sexual abuse and molestation. You have $1 million in that. Okay, so that's just standard. There's nothing really out of the ordinary with any of that. Next is our educators legal. Same thing, there's really nothing that stands out. Standard $1 million, $3 million coverage that we recommend our districts carry. That also includes your employment-related wrongful acts as well. And then the next slide is your employment practices liability. So that's covering your wrongful termination, sexual harassment, discrimination amongst all of your employees within the district. So again, you have standard $1 million, $3 million, which is great coverage there with a $5,000 deductible. Am I going too fast?
Nope.
Okay. Next is law enforcement liability, which is providing liability for those student resource officers that you have on premises. So you have $1 million, $3 million there. And then the next coverage is your commercial auto, which of course is covering your fleet, your buses, your vans, for $1 million. And yes, and the full, thank you, Lisa. The full auto schedule is attached just for your review. Again, the team had gone through and we had quite a few discrepancies between the old program and the new, so we spent a lot of time cleaning that up. So those schedules are attached. We won't go through them for the purposes of today, but if you'd like to review them, that's in the next 3 to 4 pages. Following that, we have property. As we mentioned, we are insuring all of the buildings to date at $200 per square foot, which we feel is very sufficient in today's market with inflation and those building material costs that we're seeing continue to escalate. So your program this year has an additional $20 million in building coverage on top of what we had last year. We did take a look at higher deductibles for this, and we did go with a $25,000 deductible on the property. So when we get into the premium dollars, we can talk a little bit more about that if you like.
Where do you get your comparables from?
Meaning the cost per square foot. The industry, every insurance company has their own replacement cost estimator that they use. So we used Argonauts in this case. We found they're all fairly consistent, especially when we're looking at buildings like yours. There's really nothing extraordinary about the construction here. You've always been well insured from a cost per square foot perspective. In fact, when we came into the renewal, you were at $189. We felt really good about that going into the renewal. And then they came back and we're looking for that 200. And as we look at inflation, we look at, you go to buy a 2x4, used to be $8 and now it's 24, right? So, so that's the source there.
Okay, I know it's coming down. That's the only reason why I asked. So.
Yeah. So I think I believe insurance will be kind of like a levy, right? Like once we get it up there, I don't see the company next year allowing us to insure it for less per square foot, but knowing that it is coming down, we could look for hopefully that to be more stable next year and not look for an increase on the value piece. Okay. You also have included in your program, and just to throw that out because it's important to know, you have $1 million in flood and $1 million in earthquake coverage with those. None of your buildings are in the flood zone, but those are coverages that are thrown in to your program as well. So, yeah, we'll skip a few pages. You've got a flood map next, and then we have the list of all of your properties, and all of the values are attached there for your review. There's also a couple of pages that have some enhancements, the bells and whistles that are thrown in. That would put everyone to sleep if we went through those. So we will move on to the inland marine schedule, which is next.
Is the bus garage, what floodplain is it in? You know, off the top of your head.
I'm sorry, what's that?
The bus garage, is it in a floodplain at all?
No. Yeah, nothing. We did attach a copy of the latest FEMA map. It's in your packet. because we checked on a couple of different buildings, just making sure those that we thought might be kind of flirting with the flood zone, but there is nothing in the flood zone. So you have $1 million that applies to all of your buildings on the program. Any other questions on the property? Okay. We will skip next to the inland marine. So inland marine is all of the things that aren't in a fixed location. So you think about your mowers, your maintenance equipment, something that may go from one building to another. We've got $193,000 in that on the program. We also have, there's also a throw-in of $50,000, so if you buy an extra piece and it's not scheduled, you've got a little wiggle room there. We have the unscheduled band uniforms at $221,000 with a $1,000 deductible, unscheduled musical equipments, and also the unscheduled athletic equipment. So that's covering all of your, football equipment, all the things that you're taking from, off-site. Because your property coverage is covering everything that lives here. Your inland marine coverage is covering things that are going to float around from one place to another. Okay? Okay. Next is your crime coverage. So you've got some employee theft there. That's going to cover you. Oh gosh, I'm not keeping up with the slides here. Steve, why didn't you remind me?
Steve was blaming you, Steve.
I
Everyone
know.
blames poor Steve.
Steve, where were you?
I just
on that?
nod.
Yeah. So your crime coverage, this is just basic. You guys have on your program what we always recommend, which is $100,000 for employee theft. You've got some forgery and alteration coverage there, and some coverage for cash in and off the premises. There's just a little bit of that kind of thrown in. As I understand, you guys aren't using a ton of cash as a district, so we just have enough in there to make sure we've got a buffer. Okay. And then next is your excess liability. So your excess liability is the layer of liability that sits over your general liability and auto liability limits. You guys carry a $5 million policy there, which is standard. That's what you've carried for some time. And the next slide is the cyber policy. So happy to answer any questions at all on this. What we can tell you, just to kind of keep it high level, is that we believe what you have here is a very comprehensive policy. When we're putting a program together, we take a look at anything that could happen, right? So it's important for us to make sure that you guys don't have any surprises if a loss occurs. So when we put this entire program together, that's what we've looked at. When we shopped for your cyber policy, we did a lot of looking. Because a lot of carriers are starting to limit sublimits. They're not giving the limits that they used to in the past. Coverages like social engineering, ransomware, we're seeing those be extremely sublimited or not offered at all. So you have a little bit of something for everything, and then you have a $2 million aggregate overall for the year. Okay? Any questions on that?
Yeah. With everything happening, with school shootings and everything going on out there right now, does any of this take any of that into consideration?
Yeah, so
For the student, for example?
So in your liability policy, you have $100,000 per incident in violent event response. So that's going to cover bodily injury. So if there were a school shooting, you would have some coverage for that. There are products in the marketplace that will offer coverage for mental health services, for reconstruction of a building. Oftentimes when there's a shooting, it's a complete reconstruction of the building. There are mental health services. There are third-party liability suits that are brought against the district. There are policies available for that. We'd be happy to put something together if you guys would like to take a look at it. They are not inexpensive, as you can imagine. We had quoted it for the district 2 years ago, and it was right around $14,000. So I'm not saying it would be $14,000. I'm just saying that's, it is a chunk what you're looking at. But we write 3 school districts as an agency, and 2 of them do carry a separate policy. So, and if you hate talking about it, you hate thinking about it, all of those things. but you do have a little bit of something in your program. You're not completely bare. So you do have something. If you want to look at a broader form, we'd be happy to put something together for you. You can let us know. Okay.
That was an additional 14,000.
And we did not quote it, but 2 years ago when we quoted it for Miamisburg, it was 14,000. Yeah. Student count really hasn't varied all that much in the last couple years. So we can put something together if you'd like to look. Anything else so far? We're almost to the finish line. Lisa does a great job keeping track of the claims for the district every year. She works really closely with Steve and the team to make sure we're on top of incidents when they occur. So there is a claims review attached in your packet if you'd like to take a look at that. Again, you guys do a great job. You're on top of everything. The communication's really good, and we really appreciate that because we really try to, and Lisa works very hard when an incident occurs to make sure that we're communicating with the company so that just because it's an incident doesn't necessarily mean it's a claim, right? So communication's really important, and your team does a really great job of open communication on that, which we very much appreciate. And then the last page that we have for you is everybody's favorite, which is the premium page. So that's going to show us the premium by line of coverage and the increase by line of coverage there. So you can see we have an overall annual increase of 8% in premium. Those do vary by line. The addition of the vehicles, the additional $20 million in property premium is driving a lot of that. Again, we offset some of that $20 million with the work that the team did on making sure we had all that equipment appropriately allocated and not necessarily showing as floating, and then also updated, because again, we had some equipment on there. We had radios from like 1998 on that schedule, so the team spent a lot of time going through and making sure that all of the assets were accounted for and in the right place, which really helped us out a lot from a premium perspective, and then also just in terms of making sure that our program is accurate. Questions?
I just like to say, I know that things that you least expect sometimes are things where you need to be covered. Trust me, you know, being in real estate and a landlord, I can tell you that is a fact. And I think that we probably at least should maybe take a look at some increases in some of those areas just in case. Now, whether or not it's worth it, that's something that we'd have to talk about, you know, in a work session or something. But I just don't want to walk away from it because it can be very, very expensive. Like she's saying, you know, the reason why the insurance is expensive is because if something happens, it's going to be very expensive.
Right, and we had discussions about the violence, the active shooter. That's why we wanted to kind of have them present tonight, and because we can always add on, you know, as we look at that to do that. Angie, do you want to talk about in terms, I think of some of Dale's stuff of how if an incident would occur in a building, fire, whatever, that you actually pull from pools of other
Yes.
the buildings, the allotment of pool, which gives you that coverage if something would happen,
Yes.
just not assigned to that building.
Yes. So Steve's referring to what in insurance we call the blanket limit. So when you take a look at your property limit, you see, you know, your building value limit at 185 million, something I don't have in front of me, so I'm going from memory. What that means is if one building would be a little underinsured, or you would have more equipment or things in that building for some reason, you would be able to pull from that total blanket limit. You wouldn't be attached exactly to what's on the statement of values that we've attached. So with a schedule like this, with all the buildings that you have, all the equipment and things you have floating around, we like to have that blanket limit so that you can pull from one another. Should a loss occur that would exceed the value to rebuild, you can pull from those other locations. Does that make sense?
Now, is there, commercial, I understand commercial buildings and private
Yes,
buildings
you
and all
do.
that, but since it's
Yeah.
public,
Yeah.
But since it's public, is there an umbrella offered for the,
Yes, that's the excess. They refer to it in this program as the excess policy. The language, the difference between excess and umbrella policies, which you can get personally and with some businesses, tend to cover things that aren't scheduled underneath. The excess policy means that $5 million limit sits in excess of the coverages that you have underneath. So you have $1 million in your general liability, $1 million in your auto liability. That excess policy sits over those, giving you $6 million for both of those in aggregate for the year.
okay, and there was an incident this past year where a school bus got hit and some of the children were not here, but, and is that is any of that covered to, you said maximum $1 million, I think, is what that
You
was,
have
or was it 100,000?
You have $1 million in your auto liability, but the excess policy provides an additional $5 million. So in that case, you would have $6 million available in limits
Okay,
for your auto liability.
hospital bills and stuff like that
Yep.
for children or something. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And that's an annual aggregate of $6 million, so you could pull from that.
Thank you.
Sure. What else?
Nothing from me. Thanks, Angie.
You bet.
Thanks,
Okay.
Lisa. Anything else from anybody?
No, I just want to make one comment. Angie and Lisa, they worked very, very hard on this. I think every time they saw my email or phone call up with caller ID, they're like, "Who's going to take the phone call?"
Not true.
No, we really wanted to make sure that we went through everything of all of our policies. You know, this year as we look at, John spent a lot about, as we look at every contract, we do all of that for cost savings. You know, and I'll give an example. When we looked at our collision for deductibles, I think one of them was it?
You were at 500.
We were at 500 for
Yeah.
turning something in for bus. Well, we never turn stuff in for bus. The only time that we ever even send anything out is if a bus was in an accident, we can't fix it in the body shop. So why would we want to turn something in for $500 anyway when we fix everything in-house as well? So we really took a look at all those deductibles and what are we really turning in. I mean, unless we absolutely necessarily have to, just like with your home, you don't turn things into insurance. Right. And so that's why we were able to really bring those costs down. And I just, kudos to Debbie and Rich and Ed. I mean, we combed through many thousands of lines of items of inventory to really clean it up. So as we go through each year, it's going to be a lot easier to go through and do that. So what you're seeing is a true cleaned copy. So, but I want to publicly thank them. They worked extremely hard, and they were very gracious with all my drilling and questions and what about this and what about that. And so I just want to thank you publicly for that. So
We appreciate it, and we return that thank you, and it was a completely different experience. You know, I've only been with the agency for 5 years. Lisa, of course, has a lot more time with you all under her belt, but it was a different experience this year working on the insurance program. Previously, the approach had been really more focused on those deductibles being smaller. I think the mindset of the output, the maybe output, and this year it really felt like we were working together as a team, and having the ability to get in and really dig into those schedules, dig into the coverages and some different options, and be able to talk through and roundtable those was really a great experience for us. It really felt like a team experience, so we appreciate it. And we know you guys have 8 million things you're doing besides insurance, so the hours you gave us are very much appreciated, because again, it's our job to make sure you don't have any surprises, and that open communication really helps limit and almost eliminate that. So thank you very much.
But your point of contact, and I saw that, your point of contact, if we have an incident, whatever it is,
So
you
typically,
contact Lisa because she's the primary, you're our primary agent,
and
or our primary contact person?
yeah, and our building principals, secretaries, nurses, I mean, they are on top of it. If we have an injury of any student at school or staff member, no matter how big or how small, they notify us. Immediately, we let Lisa know right away, and they have a list. If something does come back later, because the insurance company is going to ask us, was this ever reported? What documentation do you have? So they have it, but most of the time, there aren't any claims to that, but we just want to make sure that we're covering ourselves and covering masters as well, too, to be good stewards of them as well.
I have one more question. Okay, I'm sorry, but I just
Okay.
sitting there thinking. What's kind of a fine line between where the line drawn for workman's comp and what we're looking at here for an injury?
I need more.
Well, there would be, or can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
So they're kind of two separate things.
Yeah,
If
but where you draw the line, though, that's what I'm saying.
well, what happens is if it's a workers' comp claim, then those really go towards the Bureau of Workers' Comp to settle within those. If there's some crossover with it, the two insurance companies and or two attorneys or whoever they're assigned case adjusters get together and move through those. But that's why when someone gets, one of our employees gets injured at work, I mean, Nicole Calvert is like, in the principals or supervisors, you need to fill out a workers' comp, period, I'm exaggerating, did you get a paper cut? I don't care, you're gonna fill out an injury report, because down the road as well, if it comes back to that, then we really try to watch and say, no, this is a workers' comp claim, this is a workers' comp claim, because they're two separate, premiums that we're paying per year for those.
Yes.
And,
So
well, and I guess my question's still not been answered, because I'm wondering, give me an example of where you would draw, where would you go to them instead of workman's comp?
So Ohio is a monopolistic work comp state, so that means that all of the work comp insurance is purchased through the Bureau.
One place.
We do have coverage on our policy called employer's liability. So when I think about a line, that's employer's liability claims occur when you as a business have put someone in a situation that you knew was dangerous. So, I don't know, you ask them to juggle scissors, and of course that's dangerous, so they're gonna cut themselves, right? I know it's silly, but that's all I can think of. So we don't handle the work comp, obviously that's handled direct through the state. But if a suit were to be brought where they're saying you as an employer are liable, you put them in a situation that caused them injury, we have coverage on our policy, and we would work with you on that. Does that help?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, eyes and limbs and that type
Yes.
of thing.
Yeah, and that's all work comp language when it comes to, the workers' comp policy has a dollar limit for everybody's arm and leg and finger and fingernail, and they can tell you what all those things are worth.
So where we'll pick up on that is where workman comp stops, basically, right? That's what you're trying to say?
Right, typically what'll happen, there's not a lot of crossover. There really shouldn't be a lot of crossover, because if it's a workers' comp claim, depending on how far down is it in your experience, is it in your experience, is it out of your experience, have you been going through therapy for how many years, all those things take into consideration, and any, quote, settlement and or payout should be coming from the Bureau.
If we were in Indiana, Lisa and I would be presenting your workers' compensation coverage to you. It would be a part of what we present to you. Because we're in Ohio, the Bureau administers all of that. So it's distinctly separate. The only reason we would get involved is there's liability determined that isn't picked up in the work comp policy.
Okay, and how about like PTSD? Okay, where's that covered at? Is that workman's comp?
That's common.
huge now. I mean, it's absolutely, it's increased like 500, 600 times now.
So, interesting you bring that up because we kind of talk about, PTSD, mental health services, the crossing of those lines where we've seen a lot of those increases that have occurred. And that's been a topic, a lot of Bureau of Workers' Comp Safety Council meetings. What programs do you have in place? What training do employees have for that? So all those things are very important. And one of the things that we partner with for our public school safety is the public scores, where people do it online. And I know a lot of times the employees are like, oh my God, I take this every year. I know what this or I know what that is, but it's really important for people to kind of have that in the front of their mind. And as you know, with Katie, a lot with social emotional learning, and all those things, and mental health issues that are out there. Those aren't just for kids, Our staff has a lot of that, and Clarissa and Colleen, who we have through Montgomery County ESC, they've done multiple presentations at staff meetings. I know they've presented to our bus drivers and nutrition services, and we're actually working with them from opening day stuff to kind of hit some of the other classified groups that don't have that opportunity to get to staff meetings and hear to talk about them, because mental health affects everyone. It's just not kids and adults, and
Yeah, it's
So-
huge. I mean, it's astronomical what's going out now for mental health, and especially from COVID, all the COVID stuff going on, and the kids and the fears and stuff of the kids watching television, seeing things happening in other places, and
Right, and-
But anyway, I'm sorry I'm taking so much time here, but it is very, very important that we keep ourselves covered. I think in certain areas that maybe in the past, I'm not saying us personally, but as society, we've been more lackadaisical over, and those things are getting to be more and more expensive and more common. The occurrences of I'm going to just call it mental illness because it is. But somebody's got to pay for all that.
Right, and those mental illnesses too has caused the disability rate in both STRS and SERS as well
Good point.
to increase in terms of that. So we've seen a lot of it. There's not a meeting that I go to that's not involved in HR or business or anything where mental illness is a concern out there for that. We do have, and I'll give credit to Katie and her group. They put a lot of really good things into place. And I'm just not saying this to toot our horn, but when we compare ourselves to other districts and other big districts around us, we are running circles around them in terms of emotional health and support that we provide to our students. So we're here, but as with anything, as I always say, how are we going to get to the next level to get to that? So,
Yeah, well, thanks. I know I talked a lot, but this stuff is just that important, I think. Thanks for covering this.
right, and we had that conversation with Angie and Lisa as well, as we talked about the excess or quote umbrella that some people refer to it as, and mental illness, anguish, things like that were a big part of that as well too, to make sure that we were covered.
Bingo.
Yeah, just on a lighter note too, my son owns his own insurance agency in Atlanta, Georgia, and he models it after Masters Insurance. I want you to know that.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
because he grew up here and he saw how Mike and Scott were so involved in the community. He's doing the same thing in his community, and yeah. When I'm down there all the time, though, he's always on the phone
Yeah,
with a claim.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Thanks so
he
much for
loved
that.
your family and how you treated everyone. So, yeah.
And even though, the agency, the Hosket-Ullin purchased Masters 5 years ago, the Hoskets are a family too. They're a family in Columbus, just like Scott and Mike. It's just
Yeah.
another generation.
Right.
So it's still, even though the name's a little bit different and some of the faces are different, that's why I'm here, it's still that family and that small business, and it's important to us to continue to support the community and
Yeah,
finally
I knew
off
they
the
didn't
MMA board
actually-
and
I
finally
can't
didn't
wait
own
to,
it anymore,
I
but
can't
yeah.
wait to tell Mike and Scott that you said they were old.
Yeah.
That old generation,
That's
this new
right.
generation.
I just said new generation. I didn't call anybody old. I just,
I'm from their generation, so I know.
yeah, yeah, so.
All right. Thank you guys very, very much. We
Thank you
appreciate
so
everything
much.
you've
We
done.
appreciate the opportunity to see you guys tonight. Thanks.
Thanks, Angie. Thanks,
You bet.
Lisa.
Yep, thanks. If you guys get paid by the hour tonight, you're gonna be rich.
Wouldn't that be nice? You guys have a good one. Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, next on the agenda is recognition of appreciation. We have a retiree. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution for the following employee, Kathy Pickleton, 18 years. May I have a motion for Miss Kathy?
I move that the board recognize the Kathy Pilkington for 18 years of service and for her retiring.
We have a motion by Mr. Toadvine.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Lewis.
Nope.
Oh,
Mr. Daffler.
Mr. Daffler.
Credit where it
My
belongs.
mistake. I'm sorry. You guys sounded alike. Mr. Homan, I do not have that resolution in front of me. Was it on the,
She's gonna mail it to, because she wasn't gonna be with us tonight, so.
okay. All right, I was gonna,
Oh, hang on.
I don't know if it's on the internet's not
I'm
working.
slacking here. Hang on.
know if it's,
It's here.
yep. I was gonna read it.
There we go.
Resolution of appreciation, whereas Kathy Pickleton has rendered 18 years of service to the Miamisburg City Schools, and whereas Kathy Pickleton's performance, conduct, and sincerity in carrying out her duty as exemplified the highest level of achievement, and whereas Kathy Pickleton has distinguished herself as an MH assistant in the Miamisburg City School District. Now therefore be it resolved that the Miamisburg City School Board of Education passes this resolution as a token of its appreciation for her outstanding conduct, and that such resolution become part of the permanent minutes of the said Board of Education dated June 28th, 2022. So we do appreciate her 18 years of service and wish her well in retirement.
Kathy's a very dedicated employee. I mean, always at work every day, just very kind, compassionate towards the students, and just a very caring person overall. And she's going to be missed. And I told her I was going to say all these things about her, not even though she wasn't going to be here. So, but she's been a very valuable member of our staff, and when she sees her students in the store, they will come up and give her a hug and all those. So we're very, very grateful for her years of service. So thank you, Kathy.
Anybody else? With motion by Mr. Toadvine, seconded by Mr. Daffler, so may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Amsler,
Yes?
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler.
Yes.
Next on tonight's agenda is consent agenda. A is the approval of the overnight extended student trips. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the overnight extended student trips. And this is varsity and JV freshman cheerleading teams for Camp Kern. Also, we have the Europe student trip in 2024. B is the approval of out-of-state overnight travel. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the out-of-state travel, the AP TIP AP Summer Institute in Indiana. Also, we have the varsity JV and freshman cheerleading teams in Camp Kern, as well as the Europe student trip in 2024. C is the approval of the National School Breakfast, Lunch, Snack, and Beverage Program. It is recommended that the Miamisburg Board of Education approve the National School Breakfast, Lunch, Snack, and Beverage Program. D is the approval of lunch prices. It is recommended that the Board of Education establish lunch prices for the 2022-2023 school year as follows. Elementary. Breakfast is $1.30, middle school $1.60, as well as the high school and adults are $1.75. Lunch at the elementary will be $2.50, middle school is $2.85, high school $3.05, and the adults are $4.15, and milk across the board is 60 cents. E is extracurricular code of conduct and athletic fan code of conduct. F is the revision of school fees. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the revision of the Miamisburg High School computer applications fee for the 2022-2023 school year as follows. Computer applications, $35. This includes the current $5 fee and an additional $30 fee for SAM, the online premier training for Microsoft Office. G is the disposal of capital assets. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve disposal of capital assets as follows. I don't know actually how you want me to read this, Mr. Homan.
You don't have to read them. I'll just tell you that we have to put them on the board policy. If we purchase something for more than $5,000, which is our capital asset threshold, then when we go to dispose of them. So if you remember, we did the school bus grant program,
Right.
and then we had some with some ESSER monies and PI money that we purchased buses with. So these are the ones that we traded in for, and then the checks go back. John deposits it back into the account. But since when we purchased the buses, they were more than $5,000, we have to dispose of them. So.
H is the approval of all the consent items A alpha through G golf. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve those items. May I have a motion for A through G?
I approve consent items A through G.
We have a motion by Mrs. Neese.
Second.
And we do, at this point in time, have a second by Mr. Lewis. We go back through.
A,
Yes, sir.
A, sir.
Golf is on the mind.
You missed again.
No,
It was Mr. Tobin, not Mr. Lewis.
it was?
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at Mr. Lewis.
I'll talk louder. I know I talk
I'm not a
all the time.
ventriloquist, Chris.
You are tonight. Consent agenda A on the overnight extended student trips. Anything?
Business as usual?
Yeah.
For B as well.
Yeah.
And the lunch prices, right?
Right.
That's-
See, we have to turn a copy of the board agenda in for the national program to show that the board has approved it, and then same with lunch prices. We have to show that we've done that, and code of conduct. That's the normal revision of that as part of, just like we do handbooks
Right.
approval. Ohio High School Athletic Association, once code of conduct's approved as well.
Just to go back, once we approve this evening, set the meal prices, we will be notifying families often this summer, just because this will be a change, because meals have been free for the last 2 school years. So we will be notifying and letting folks know how they can apply for the free and reduced lunch application online, and we'll be sharing that out through all our social media sites and on our website, and sending some one calls, so families can get back and understand that meal prices are back in effect.
Also, the free and reduced forms directly affect our economic disadvantage funding. So that's one change with the Fair School Funding Plan. It's real-time funding on the students that are free and reduced lunch that fill out the forms, and also the direct certification students. But really, it's important for those students to fill out the forms.
else was technically explained by Mr. Homan earlier in regards to disposal of capital assets. So is there any questions or comments in regards to those consent items?
I just had a question about the school fees for the computer applications. Is that for every student will take that Microsoft training?
Yes, it's a graduation requirement.
Okay.
I think most students, like freshmen and sophomore, they take it during the time. And it's really just paying for the credential, that program. So,
It's a state requirement, I mean, a requirement for graduation for the state or Miamisburg or?
I think it's required to take the graduation requirement too. So,
Not just for us, right?
correct.
I mean, for the state. So is that an unfunded mandate that's been voted on by our state legislature?
We could find out to be sure and report.
I'm
back.
sure it is.
But I do want to say that this fee had been in place before, and then we moved away from it. Now it's just coming back.
Yeah.
So, but
Okay.
to your point, yes, it likely is, but we'll let you know for sure.
Mr. Lewis, would you like to share any other thoughts? Not tonight.
Go ahead.
Hearing no other comments, may I have a vote?
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
Next on tonight's agenda is the Human Resources agenda items. A is the approval of personnel reports certificated and classified. And B, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel reports. B is the approval of personnel reports supplemental stipend certificated and classified. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel report supplemental stipend certificated and classified. Within both A and B, the employment in the Miamisburg City School District is contingent upon the candidate submitting to and passing a BCII and FBI criminal record check in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code and pre-employment drug screening in accordance with the adopted board policies. C is the approval of human resources items A alpha and B bravo. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve these human resource items. May I have a motion for these two items, please?
I move for the approval of human resource items A and B.
I second it.
That was Mr. Daffler and seconded by Mrs. Neese. Any questions, comments, Mr. Homer?
You know, the hiring season continues, so we're getting there.
Any questions or comments in regards to the board members? Hearing none, may I have a roll call?
Mr. Amsler,
Yes?
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
5 is the agreements and contracts. A is the approval of the master agreement and reciprocal service fee agreement with Meta Solutions effective July 1st, 2022. It is recommended by the superintendent and treasurer CFO that the general service agreement with Meta Solutions be approved effective July 1st. Should that actually say July 1st, 2022?
Yes, it should be 22 to 23.
Right. July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Meta will provide Schedule 2 services at a cost of $28,694.57. B is approval agreement with Eastern Lane Studios recommended by the superintendent and treasurer and CFO to enter into a 4-year agreement with Eastern Lane Studios. C is the approval agreement with Warren County Educational Service Center The superintendent and treasurer CFO recommend approval of the attached agreement with the Warren County Educational Service Centers for services to be provided during the 2022-2023 school year. D, approval of faculty use agreement with, or facility use agreement with Miami Valley Child Development Centers Incorporated in Preschool Promise. It is recommended that the superintendent, treasurer, CFO, and the director of business services, that the district enter into an agreement with the Miami Valley Child Development Center Incorporated in Preschool Promise. E is the approval agreement with Greene County Educational Service Center. It is recommended that the superintendent, director of student services, enter into an agreement with the Greene County Educational Service Center. F is the approval agreement with Samaritan Behavioral Health. It is recommended that the superintendent, director of student services, to enter into an agreement with Samaritan Behavioral Health for the implementation of the second step program for 6th grade students. G, approval agreement with NWEA. The superintendent and treasurer CFO recommend approval and agreement with NWEA for MAP growth K through 12. H, approval of agreement with Bradley Payne Advisors. Superintendent and treasurer recommend approval of an agreement with Bradley Payne Advisors. I, approval of Miamisburg High School projector change order. It is recommended the superintendent, treasurer, CFO, and assistant superintendent of business human resources that the following Miamisburg High School projector change order be approved. J, awarding the liability, property, and fleet insurance. It is recommended by the superintendent, treasurer, CFO, assistant superintendent of business human resources that the liability, property, and fleet insurance be awarded to Agronaut Insurance Company, local agency Master and Associates, LLC. K, approval of purchases of faithful performance bonds. This resolution be it resolved that the Board of Education of Miamisburg City Schools hereby authorize the treasurer CFO to continue the faithful performance bond in place for the treasurer until August 1st, 2024 for the following amount. Treasurer CFO, $100,000. L, approval to participate in the EPC bus bid process. Miamisburg City School Board of Education wishes to participate and authorize the Southwestern Ohio Educational Purchasing Council to advertise and receive bids on said board's behalf as per the speculations submitted to the cooperative purchase of school buses. M, approval agreement between A Alpha and L Lima. May I have a motion for those items A through L, please?
It's actually M. We had one more added, but yeah. Is it A through?
M.
Yeah.
It should be N, approval of agreement and contracts A through M.
Okay.
Well, I will move for the approval of agreement and contracts, items A through M.
Second.
It was Mr. Lewis that did the motion.
Mr. Lewis had a first, and who was the second? Mr. Naflin. All right. I think I've done enough talking on that episode, so we'll go back to the beginning. That was Meta Solutions.
So Meta is our information technology center that we send all of our data through. They operate our financial software that we use as well as our student information system, and so that's what that contract is for.
And then B, Easterling Studios, we are just combining all of our school picture vendors into one so that we have kind of a standardized contract with one vendor. And then as we move toward our new website, we can have all of our staff photographed
same background and professional look. So John was able to work with them to get all of our schools under the Easterling contract.
And it's a 4-year deal that allows a higher payout of percentage back to the schools.
And then C is our Warren County service agreement for services for students and for a variety of needs that we have. Obviously, D is our preschool promise program that we're starting this year, so that's exciting to have that partnership with not only Preschool Promise, but Miami Valley Child Development Centers. And also, we want to give thanks to the Department of Education because they also provided Miami Valley Child Development Centers with a $50,000 grant to help our program. So it's a great partnership. And the Greene County Service Center, we have an agreement because they do have a drone program, which is not offered through the Miami Valley CTC. So we do have a student that was interested in the drone program. So we do have an agreement with them so that student can explore that career option. And then the Samaritan Behavioral Health contract. This is a continual contract. I shared with you all experts data today from our year end. So this is a great service that we offer our middle school and high school, and we're also going to be implementing the second step program this coming year for our 6th graders. So Mrs. Thomas worked to get that, to add another layer of social emotional support that we talked about earlier this evening. So it's an expansion. And then of course the agreement with NWEA. NWEA is where you hear MAP scores. This is a formative assessment that we're able to give our students to monitor their growth and progress throughout the year. It's a great data tool. And then, you want to talk about H?
Yeah, so we met with Bradley Pan Advisors, who are our municipal advisors during the bond refunding, and they offer a service to help with capital planning. And as that goes along with our strategic plan for capital planning, it allows us to really have a collaborative process to plan out 10 years for capital expenditures, and also tap into their knowledge of financing if we needed to do that. But it also allows us to just have another set of data points to take into account when we're planning these large expenditures and best practices on how we go about planning those. So, did I miss anything, Mr. Homan?
Yeah, sounds good.
Change order.
The change order for I is they're working through the high school project, and they got to some of the rooms in which we started. Remember, one of the reasons we went forward with the project was because we were kind of pulling parts from other buildings trying to make it work. Well, some of the ones that were pulled were, I would call them, not compatible, different models for those. So we have to go back and order parts to do that. So we did have a conversation with them about, because we looked at this, why wasn't this kind of flagged is the walkthrough. And so one of the things was when they looked at them, the boxes look like the same box as the other ones, but they're different models in terms of that. So we said, well, we understand, some mistakes happen. So we did ask them if they would go ahead and waive the install fee and all that. So we're paying for we're paying for the materials for those kind of, if they would split that cost with us. So. Oh, and J is the liability where we've discussed that tonight already. Masters. Faithful performance bond.
Do you guys need me to talk about the bond for me? I have to be bonded per Ohio Revised Code.
Unfunded mandate.
Yes, and you won't need to worry about
Did that come down from
executing that
Columbus?
bond. So, yes, it did.
And I did
Yeah.
check, and we are required to provide our students with electives, and the computer class does fall under that requirement.
And then L is the approval. This is an annual thing every year in order for us to participate through the EPC to get the bus bids where we purchase our buses from at a nice price. We have to have that on the agenda, so. I'm just glad we didn't have to get to double letters this evening with
thought we were gonna
contracts
get
and
through the
agreements, so.
On that one.
So it is items A through L,
Yeah.
right? Did we throw an M and an N there? I thought
No,
somebody said-
there isn't, it's A through M, and I think it's incorrect towards the end, isn't it? Am I missing that?
J, K, L, M, N, great. When they did the motion. Correct.
I thought there was one on here that we didn't have
A,
on the paper.
C,
I think yours
F, G, H, I, J, K.
M is agreements between A. Okay. All right, any other discussion? I just didn't know if it had needed to be direct or not, so that's why I was asking.
It's fine, I think.
Okay. Any other discussion? No? All right, I'll be quiet and just say roll call.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yeah.
Mr. Amsler,
Yes?
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes.
6 is the financial agenda items. A is approval of fiscal year 2023 018 and 200 fund budget purpose statements. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the fiscal year 23 018 200 budget and purposes statements as presented. B is approval of transfers, school fees waived. The Treasurer CFO recommends that the Board of Education approve the following transfers. These transfers are for school fees waived during April through June 2022. All transfers are made in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code 5705.14. C is the approval of advances for fiscal year 2022, return advances in fiscal year 23. The Treasurer CFO recommends that the Board of Education approve the following advances for fiscal year 22. The advances are required in order to eliminate fund balance deficits at fiscal year end in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code. All amounts will be returned to the 001 fund in fiscal year 23. D is the authorization for amendment to fiscal year 2022 appropriations and certificate of estimated resources. E is the authorization for, I guess I didn't read the recommended action. It is recommended that the Treasurer CFO that the fiscal year 2022 appropriations and certificate of estimated resources be amended as listed in the attached reports. The Board of Education authorizes the Treasurer CFO to make adjustments that would occur in fiscal year 2022 prior to sending the county auditor. Any such changes will be reported to the Board of Education at the July 2022 regular board meeting, education meeting. E is the authorization for permanent appropriations for fiscal year 2023. It is recommended by the Treasurer CFO that the fiscal year 2023 permanent appropriations and the fiscal year 2023 certificate of available balances be approved as outlined in the established report. The Board of Education authorizes the Treasurer CFO to make any unnecessary changes to the certificate of available balances based on fiscal year 2022 actuals, financial figures. Any changes to the certificate of available balances will be presented at the Board of Education at the July 2022 regular board meeting. F is settlement agreements with 3385 Newmark Drive LLC. The Treasurer and CFO recommends that the Board of Education approve the attached revised settlement agreement with 3385 Newmark Drive LLC. G is a settlement agreement with TWC Dayton LLC. The Treasurer CFO recommends that the Board of Education approve the attached settlement agreement with TWC Dayton LLC. H, settlement agreement with TIA FSB. Treasurer CFO recommends that the Board of Education approve the attached settlement agreement with TIA FSB. I, approval of then and now invoices. The Treasurer CFO recommends that the Board of Education approve the then and now invoices as presented. J is the approval of financial items A through I. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve financial items A through F. May I have a motion for those items, please? Or A through I, actually.
I move to approve financial items A through F.
It's actually,
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh.
it is through I.
This
It was
F
just
on
a
the
misprint
paper.
on the paper.
Yeah, okay.
Motion by
Oh, no seconds yet?
Mrs. Neese for items A through I.
Second.
Second by Mr. Toadvine. Mr. Espy.
So as we go back and look at item A, if you remember last meeting, I had you, or asked you to approve the 018 and 200 funds for fiscal year 22. This is a requirement that we had not been meeting prior to this fiscal year. So essentially what we're doing is saying budget purpose statement for each principals fund, which are the 018 funds, and then each student activity fund, which are the 200 funds. We're doing this again in fiscal year 23. There are going to be several more of these that are approved. We just had to approve the ones that were needed because we're not allowed to have expenditures out of these until you board approve them. So there'll be a few more as we come in future months. Approval of the transfers. This is for free and reduced lunch, so we essentially just replenish the student fee funds that each building has access to. Letter C is just advancing. Ohio Revised Code says we're not allowed to have a negative fund balance. So essentially what we do is we advance this amount of money. As soon as we open next fiscal year, we return it back to the general fund to just stay compliant with the county auditor and also with auditor state requirements. D is the final set of appropriations and amended certificate. So again, appropriations are all of our budgets. The certificate, amended certificate, are all of our revenues, and those have been adjusted down to actuals with a little bit of a buffer in the general fund in the case that there was an emergency. So just a little bit of backstory here. We cut off the requisitions in April because we want to have POs and we want to have those things invoiced so we don't have encumbrances or POs that are crossing the fiscal year. Also, we cut our final checks in early June so that we can start to true up these financial reports, and these reports are what those are and what they represent. Also, at this time of the year, we're also planning and doing permanent appropriations and the first certificate of available balances for fiscal year 23, which is what E is. That's been done through a collaborative budgeting process with supervisors and building administrators and district level administrators, and that's what those appropriations signify. F is going to be one of the settlement agreements that I discussed earlier, as well as H and I think I missed one. G. And then I is an approval of then and now invoice. This was for high school prom. Was a little bit under in terms of the number of people we thought were going to be attending, and it did trigger that $3,000 overage that we have to come and ask you to approve. So it has happened. I heard that they had a merry time was had at prom, but we do need to ask you for your permission to pay that bill. Yes. Yes. Any questions?
Any questions? Hearing none. May I have a roll call?
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler.
Yes. 7 is acceptance of donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following list of donations. All monies will be used through each school's 018 account unless indicated otherwise. $1,951 from Bauer PTO to Bauer Elementary School for the purchase of a Gaga Pit. $250 from Jeffrey Engel to the Miamisburg City School District for the MHS Theater Program. $1,000 from the Miamisburg Viking Boosters to the Miamisburg City Schools for coach stipend. The following donations were made to the Miamisburg City Schools for the Campus Quest projects. $134.12 from Ohio Pile Prints Incorporated. May I have a motion for the acceptance of donations, please?
I'll move for the acceptance of donations.
Motion by Mr. Lewis,
Second.
second by Mr. Daffler. And we do want to always say thank you to those individuals or businesses that do donate because they are always appreciated. So thank you for those donations. Any other comments or concerns in regards to those donations?
Curious what a Gaga Pit is.
Oh, you don't know what it is? Awesome.
So,
It's awesome.
I know. So the Gaga Pit, if you look at the kinder playground, it has them, there's the two black circular half walls, as I call them. I call it kind of like glorified dodgeball, but it's modified.
And it's like almost between what, that and Foursquare? Or is it just more dodgeball?
It's more dodgeball.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you go onto the playground, that's where the noise is. That's really, I mean, and you keep going until there's one. It's good.
Kids love it. It's organized. They're
Yeah.
I
Contained.
can
It's-
verify that as my window to my office is near the Gaga Pit, so.
And now they have two.
Nice.
I think does Mount have one?
Yeah, Mound's getting one installed over the summer. Mark Twain, we split with Mound PTA. So theirs is being installed this summer after they do the asphalt ceiling over there. And Bauer will have one too. So
I know people that have them in their backyards. Very
it's good.
popular.
It's good crowd control.
Our living room has been turned into one a couple times.
Oh, wow.
My wife was not home at the time. She knows
We-
about
Mr.
it.
Frazier,
We won't
might
tell her,
wanna
though.
get
Sherry
rid of
knows.
that part? Okay.
No, she knows. It wouldn't have been allowed, I think.
Hopefully it was a beach ball.
Hmm?
Was it a beach ball?
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
It was an actual kickball. Yeah.
It could have been like the Brady Bunch episode. Mom always said, "Don't play ball in the house."
Too late.
Anything else? Next is information only.
We need to take a
Oh yeah, we do need to take a roll call. Roll call.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler.
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mr. Amsler.
Yes. Next is 8 is information only. Appointment to the board delegates to the OSBA for the 2022 Fall Conference and for other requested meetings. The Board of Education appoints the following board members as the official delegate and the official alternate to the OSBA delegates meeting at the 2022 OSBA Capital Conference and other such meetings as may be requested by the position. The official delegate shall be
Chris Ansler.
okay.
Well done, Ann.
Well, the alternate then is Ann Neese. B is a nomination for the Executive Committee to the Southwest Region Ohio School Boards Association for various offices which will be elected. The 2021 nominee was Mr. Tim Lewis. I think the nominee this year should go to,
I thought Tim did a great job. He loves doing it. didn't you,
It
sir?
should be somebody else's turn. I don't
But
think
yeah,
it's my
but I
responsibility
did
to
the big
take
one.
the whole
I'll
thing.
switch with you. You do the one at the Ohio State Conference. No, I'll switch. Okay.
That's switch it with you. There's always a catch.
Yeah, there is. Okay. Anybody volunteering? Okay. You can hang me, go ahead.
Is it Mr. Toadvine?
I guess.
Thank you for stepping up, Mr. Toadvine.
It's big of you.
C is ticket price change. The Greater Western Ohio Conference has changed the ticket prices for the 2022-2023 school year as follows. Before I start naming all these, I'm assuming that we are just going to have these up on our website at some point in time.
Yes, they will be on the athletic, they probably already are on the athletic
Yeah.
website, since this was a GWAC conference decision. And also, we are doing Ticket Spigot now, so that online ticket purchasing is highly recommended.
Are we going to make tickets available for our older folks who do not do the internet? Are we going to have something for them to get?
Correct, yes.
Well, and also they can get a senior pass if they're 60 and older. Just remember that.
But I'm talking about reserved seats and that kind of
I
thing.
know you're,
too.
and you're talking about people from other teams as well, I'm sure.
So
But,
we
yeah,
need to make
just to
them available
remind
somehow.
the community that you can go to the athletic office and get that senior pass for our teams
That's very
anyway.
nice. Yes, that's good, but
Yeah,
we have some people in our community that want to get those tickets. Last year we kind of got kind of weird. That's all I'm saying. I'm done.
Sure. No, we recognize that.
yeah, I was at a
Great.
gymnastics meet where there were some people that didn't know how to access tickets, but yeah, so I get it,
Yeah.
yeah.
You senior citizens need to look into that a little bit more.
Well, I will say, in regards to the senior citizens, senior citizen passes are good for home events that may be picked up in the athletic office for residents of Miamisburg 60 and older. We can also transfer your senior pass to an electronic pass. So those individuals that are 60 and older, they are eligible for the senior pass. However, the passes are not good for the Ohio High School Athletic Tournament and Playoff Contest or any GWAC tournament meets. The sports season will feature over 100 home athletic events, and the individual or family passes can be most effective way to catch the Vikings in action for the 2022-2023 school year. So, D is the 2023-2024 school calendar date correction. Typo. Changed the first day of the grading period from October 25th to October 10th, 2023. So that small change, and that'll be updated on the website, on our calendar as well. So now we have come to that time of the night where we go through around the room, and we will start with the Miami Valley Cable Technology news, which Mr. Isaacovich is not here this evening. However, Dr. Blessing is going to read his information.
Sure. Mr. Isaacovich has his MVCTC report. He attended the senior recognition ceremony on May 13th, the Super Summer Send-Off Lunch for the MVCTC staff and retirees was May 18th. The MVCTC Adult Diploma Program and Aspire graduation for the GED was June 23rd, and the annual MVCTC Board Retreat was June 25th. The construction update, overall budget is still within the scope of the project as we continue to monitor for potential cost increases. The majority of materials and supplies have been ordered, received, and stored. The timeline, the south wing is complete. The north wing is complete. The east building demolition is complete. The multi-purpose activity center, I think they call that the MAC, is complete. The ag complex and building and is in building progress. The building spine in progress, and the west building reno begins February 2023. Building completion should be right now at the end of December 2023. The enrollment as of June 14th, there were 1,042 juniors with over 200 students on the waiting list. Congratulations to the following Miamisburg High School students. Ariana Roberts was in the HOSA Bowl and she qualified for nationals. Anna Hubers was in the Natural Resources team and she was first place in Envirothon. Dakota King, Health and Consumer Science, was recognized as the Student of the Month for pre-nursing. Ashley Torrado, Criminal Justice, and William Butler, Robotics and Automation, presented at the Career Fair at Eaton's Bruce Elementary. Anthony Jones, a silver medal in the Ohio Skills USA Graphic Commercial Art. Joseph Lipscomb, bronze medal in Ohio Skills USA for Aviation Maintenance. And Kyle Muntz and Wiley Tawney, Culinary Arts, on receiving their National Self-Serve Manager Certification. Important dates coming up. August 2nd through the 4th will be scheduled pickup nights. August 8th is the main campus and Youth Connection staff's first day. August 11th is juniors' first day at the MVCTC, and seniors start August 12th. That's it for June.
Thank you. Next is Legislative Liaison, Mr. Corey Daffler.
Got a few things here. Governor DeWine's been awfully busy. That's not always a good thing for us in general, and they're busy in Columbus. But a few things that I have highlighted. House Bill 140 got signed. It modifies how the ballot language and election notices for property tax levies are to be displayed. House Bill 687 contains appropriations including $1 million in school safety grant and $600 million in school building program funding for the Ohio Facility Construction Commission. House Bill 99, which outlines the training and other requirements for individuals to be authorized by the Board of Education to carry a firearm in a school safe zone, and creates the Ohio School Safety and Crisis Center, among other provisions. Something interesting that I thought is coming through is the medical right to refuse constitutional amendment. It was approved by Dave Yost on June 24th. The Ohio Ballot Board has 10 days to determine whether this proposal contains a single constitutional amendment. After it is certified, we'll need 600 signatures to get it on the ballot in May. I think that is, hopefully that will be on the ballot. All the previous couple years of things that have happened. That's all I got.
Thanks.
Eligible to apply for any of those grants, the $1 million?
We actually did apply for the safety grant and did not receive it. I don't know if
I
those
think
are
this is future funding,
Okay.
and they haven't spelled out all the specifications for that, but we are definitely interested.
Pass it
in
without details.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, they said, I was told by our representative, Tom Young, that they were working on the details to be coming out. We're just awaiting.
You gotta pass the bill to know what's in it.
Yes.
Next is our Student Achievement Liaison, Mr. Lewis, Tim Lewis.
I don't really have anything since we're on summer break. So,
Okay. Then we'll move along to the Montgomery County Drug-Free Coalition Representative, Mr. Dale Toadvine.
I had trouble getting into the meetings. I'm not getting the information that I'm supposed to be getting through my emails right now. But I do know that this past month there wasn't really anything going on that was important, other than this is important. The overdose numbers have gone down in Montgomery County this last couple months, which is wonderful. You know, I think it depends on what area you're in the county, perhaps. Chris, you probably know more about that than even I do, but it does seem like that the urban areas seem to have less going on than they did, believe it or not. You know, that in some of the more outlying areas, the suburbs, where there seems to be more of a problem than there had been in the past. So it's kind of weird. You'd think it'd be the opposite just because of the way that that's all laid out, but right now that's not the way that it's happening. The flow's not going in that direction, I guess I should say. Other than that, we have a lot of help that's needed in our county, and we are very fortunate that we have social workers and people here at school. I'm just saying that because of this being on television. There are people in the school district where our kids can go and they can do it anonymously, I guess is the best way of saying that, by reaching out to some of the people that can give them guidance if they do need help. I'll leave it at that.
Finally, we'll have district news and information. Ms. Ann Neese.
There is none. Brenda Hibbert said no information.
Okay.
So.
A couple of you are going to thank me. Instead of, at this point in time, we're supposed to go into an executive session and then come back. However, we will go into the executive session and we will come back, but I think what we'll do is we'll go around the room at this particular time, say our goodbyes, let a few of you leave, because when we do enter into an executive session, is to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee. This is to conduct the annual evaluation of our treasurer, CFO. When we come back out of the executive session, there will be no other business done at that particular time. So, in light of everybody getting the opportunity to go home, we will reverse a couple things and then say our goodbyes, and then we'll enter into an executive session, and at least 5 or 6 of you can take off. So with that being said,
I'd like to say one thing here too.
we are
Thanks
going
for
to.
coming. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay.
Ryan, I know you was probably in another meeting earlier this evening. Was there anything that I know you came in, was there anything that you wanted to say prior to us going around the room?
Rather than just here to listen to our other meeting concluded, or just was still you guys were in open session, it just hadn't been able to spell in the school board meeting, so I just wanted to stop in and say hello. Thank you all again for your service, and a personal thank you all again for helping. We just, our son Mason graduated, fourth generation graduate of Miamisburg High School, and so thank you all here for giving him a great educational experience. We appreciate it. So we are now in the chapter of our life where Miamisburg football is part of. Now we're at Miamisburg High School people with our daughter Riley. So 3 years of that in front of us. And very proud of the partnership we have between the city and the school.
Thanks, Ryan.
And it's kind of neat to know that the theatrical groups are growing in number, and wow, are they good. I mean, some of the things that went on the last year was like mind-blowing how good they were. So we're looking forward to more of that.
Ladies, I know also that you come diligently each month, so thank you very much for showing up tonight, taking your time away. Say again?
Social
So,
distancing was tough, wasn't it? I see you got the part there. So.
all right, Mr. Daffler.
Just think it's awesome, the wins win. I don't know, the 95.375 sounds pretty impressive. That's all good stuff. And thank you guys for all the hard work to get what we could off the insurance. I'm sure that was daunting. Appreciate that. And then I enjoy hearing that there is a 200 student waiting list at Miami Valley CTC. It's hopefully for the future workforce, maybe some good news. You know, I don't know. Right now it's horrible. So I'm glad to hear that. That's all I got.
Mr. Toadvine.
I'm just going to say that I'm already looking forward to things starting to happen at school again and being able to get out there and watch our students perform in the band and the sports activities and theater stuff that's going to be going on. And it's going to be an exciting year, I think, and hopefully we don't have any problems with diseases and so forth. You know, I've been reading now that there's monkeypox going around. That's crazy. If you guys missed that one, it's silly.
We're aware.
Yeah. I'm done.
Mr. Lewis.
Just wanted to give a big thank you to everybody that's still working in our district. School's out, but a lot of work is continuing. Central office, bus garage, our maintenance, our custodial groups, our crews, still working very hard. So thank you to everyone that's doing that. And to all of our students, just enjoy your summer. I am asked every time I see one of my grandsons, how many more days do we have? How many more days? I think it's 43 or 44. So just enjoy every day. Don't worry about it. Enjoy your summer.
Thanks for the reminder.
Ms. Neese.
I just wanted to say thanks to Brenda Hibbard because she always gets our notices out for our board meetings and works on our agenda. You know, she's a delight. She's our historian for our district. She makes me laugh. That's the best part of her. And she's always answering any questions that we have. And she's our Dr. Blessing's secretary, our administrative assistant. But she helps the board with everything. And I know I just really appreciate her. And thanks for all the work on the insurance. That was great. It sounds like we saved a lot of money, even though it did go up. We still saved. Yeah, that's all.
I will bypass this month and just say ditto and move along to Mr. Espy.
I just want to say congratulations to the Winds again and the band program in general. Like, I got a chance to go with Steve and Laura to Bands of America and see them perform back in November, right when I first started. And the achievement for the WGI Championship is really huge, especially coming from my prior life of being a band director. So definitely great. I'm excited to continue cost savings measures. I think that, the collaboration with Masters was really great. Angie and crew were able to really just give us the information we needed to give you the information and make recommendations to you. And I just want to say thank you to them. Also just being able to kind of comb through all those items and have a collaborative process with everyone was really good. And I also want to echo Ann's comment about Brenda. Steve and I, probably the last couple months, it's like controlled chaos getting these agendas together. And she is flexible and does everything with a smile, even though I'm sure she's not thinking that internally. Sometimes when we are adding things at the last minute. So I do want to say thanks to her for that. So thank you.
Well, I wanted to thank John and Steve for including me in the insurance process. It was really always eye-opening and helpful, and I felt like I was able to help with some of the computer curriculum and knowledge of where everything was going, so that was fun to be a part of that, so thank you. Also, congratulations to John. Nice job on almost year end and finalizing our book, so we appreciate that as well. And I know we didn't get to recognize our wins, but I know Patty Bennett wasn't able to come tonight, or Caitlin Colson, or Heidi Hartley, but they're a great part of the band program and music program as well. So kudos to them, and of course to the wins and the instructors and the students for coming tonight. That was fun. Also coming up on July 14th, we have our next work session. So that will be, we were trying to get it planned in June, but the month got away from us. So July 14th, we're hoping to have our next work session. It'll be at 6 o'clock at Memorial. We hope to feature some changes happening at the middle school for our students next year. Also an update on our Campus Quest kind of drive for fundraising purposes, and any other topics that we come up with between now and July 14th. So prepare for that. And I just want to wish everyone a wonderful 4th of July holiday coming up. And hopefully the weather's cool and comfortable. No rain. But I know we need rain, but at least for that day. We have some great cookouts.
Mr. Oman.
All right, so ditto with everything here tonight, but I do want to do some thanks. There's a lot that happens over the summer to get things ready, and a lot of projects going on. And this summer, our maintenance custodians, our ground crew, our maintenance supervisors, and our technology department, it has been a very challenging summer. I know Ann did a walkthrough with me at the high school, and it's organized chaos. And I know Carol's at the high school with the custodians, and I'm very grateful to all of them. It's very tough, and it's very challenging to get floors waxed, things move when things are hanging from the ceiling, wires, speakers, and but they work together to make it happen. And so I just want to thank you guys very much for that. And lots of projects happening. It's with 3 projector projects happening, and they're changing schedules every day between painters and electricians and hanging and all of that. So I just want to thank them all very much for that. So, as they said before, it's a team effort to make these things happen, and I think there's some great things happening. So thank you to all of them, and have a great 4th of July.
Students helping too, right? Like, did the football team help?
Yeah, football team helped carry some things out, and we're getting ready for our switch out with Waste Management and Rumpke, so they've been very helpful in terms of all that. But it's been a really busy summer so far, and good news, high school should be starting next week, that we approved back in the fall. All those materials finally came in. So we're looking forward to that. So
It was a mess. I don't know how you do it, Carol, with all that stuff.
yeah, I know it's
Wow.
they are very flexible when you're dealing with whatever comes in on a shipment that day. I mean, like I said, they're very flexible, and we appreciate that. So.
All right, ladies, thanks for coming. Ryan, thanks for stopping in. Again, at this point in time, we will enter into an executive session. However, once we come back out of executive session, we will not be conducting any business at that time. There'll be an adjournment, so you will not miss anything at that time. So, at this time, may I have a motion to enter into an executive session?
Bye, guys.
I move to move into executive session.
We have a motion by Mr. Daffler.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Lewis, and that particular time is 7:55.
We need to take a roll call.
May I have a roll call for that?
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
and Mr. Amsley.
Yes.